Hello everyone, my name is Adam Michael Anthony Simpson and you're watching my YouTube channel, Adam M.A. Simpson. Before we start, I'm gonna beg you to please like and subscribe to my channel, because when you like and subscribe to the channel, you help me to support me along the way, building this channel and my brand. And please click the notification button to know when I upload a new video. Again, thanks for being with me and watching this episode. I hope you enjoy. So today we'll be talking about how to read a journal article. And the content is actually created by Professor Paul Edwards, the director of Stanford's Science, Technology and Society program. And it was from one of his guides on how to read a book. And now Professor Edwards is a historian, and so he has had to read like volumes and volumes of literature and books to contribute to his work. So he really has perfected a way to, absorb a lot of information within a shorter period of time in the most effective way. And I've kind of translated this to reading scientific journal articles for you all. So this is really for your up and coming scientists, students in undergrad who are the first time they're reading journal articles, or new PhD students or master students having to read a journal article to contribute to group meeting or journal club for the first time, and really wanting to absorb the information and be able to say something that's meaningful for this exercise or the exercise that they are doing in that time. So I hope you find this informative, and here goes. Now let's start with reading the whole thing or whole article. Professor Edwards states that you should focus on major arguments and evidence, as these are the ideas that the author is trying to have the reader appreciate, which is you. So the minutiae details don't really matter a great deal. You really need to focus on absorbing the main points that the author is trying to communicate. Professor Edwards states it is more important in this strategy to grasp the structure of the whole reading. So understanding how the author has put together all of their details to drive home this main point. That's the main thing in reading the whole article, not necessarily all of the article or word by word, but reading the structure of the article and identifying where the main points are. Have an idea of your time limitation. Time is always the limiting factor in everything that we pursue in graduate school. So I've actually heard of this from multiple professors, not just Dr. Edwards, but he does a good job of explaining. He states, if you know in advance that you have only 6 hours to read this book in this case, or in our case, an article, maybe an hour, 2 hours, it'll be easier to pace yourself once you've identified how much time you have to devote to this task. Also, remember you're following his strategy of reading the whole book or whole article. So this also kind of helps to, you have this time, we're gonna get the main points in this time frame, and so setting your goal with the time. Progressing with a strategy. So from my experience, I read articles for different reasons. So, and this all depends on what I'm trying to accomplish at that time. For example, if I need to find a method on how to measure a compound in a food sample, because remember I studied food disinfection byproducts, I'll read many articles and I actually focus on the method section because I'm trying to find a procedure or a method on how to measure a specific compound in the food. So I'm looking at the method section particularly. This is both strategy and reading the article as a whole, or identifying the main point in the article that is meaningful to me in that time. So it's a part of my strategy and also the strategy of reading the article as a whole. Professor Edwards tackles this strategy more generally and tells us to be cognizant of the following. So, who is the author? What are the book arguments, or in our case, the article arguments? What are the main findings of the journal article we are reading? And also, why did we choose to read that article in the first place? Another point is what evidence we need to literally highlight in the article or book that supports the argument made by the author. What are the books or journal articles' conclusions? Sometimes I've even read the conclusions first to see if this is going to have the information that I need in the first place. So sometimes I read the article reverse, just to make sure that I'm making good use of my time, and maybe if I need to troubleshoot and look for another article, particularly for procedures. If this article doesn't have the exact procedure I'm looking for to do the task that I want to in the lab, then I'm just going to move on. Dr. Edwards then states that you should try to determine the following. What are the weaknesses of the argument or evidence or conclusion? This is mostly important when you start to review articles yourself. So this is a good strategy for being in the peer review process when you are the reviewer. And what do you think about these arguments, pieces of evidence, and conclusions? And then also, how could the author respond to these weaknesses and to your own criticism? So once you've found a criticism or a critique and you've highlighted that, and if you're doing peer review, you will state this in your overall review, kind of think of how the author will respond to you. And keep coming back to these arguments as you continue to read, because sometimes the author answers that further down in the progression of the article when you're reading. Read actively. So Dr. Edwards wants us to constantly develop and generate hypotheses as you progress throughout the journal, article, or book. So make notes of these along the way as you read the article. And in other words, don't wait on the author to hammer the main point in our heads or your head. Try to generate the main point as you go, because this can also be a critique on your end if you haven't gotten that main point while you're reading. If the main point isn't apparent, or you have found a main point that is more fitting, then that's a very good critique for you to include in a peer review, or in the case of Journal Club, to contribute to the discussion in your lab group. Focus on sections with the greatest information based on your strategy. So Dr. Edwards' context is for a book. However, we can follow his guidance for a journal article. At this point, we already have a strategy such as, do I need a citation for a piece of information, like the latest calculation of some constant in a model that I'm trying to create or reproduce for my own research? Or do I need guidance on lab techniques or methods that will help with my own project? So those are two different reasons that we read journal articles. So therefore, you should always enter this writing scenario by finding the journal article section that best fits the motive of why you're reading the article in the first place. Hence, I'll always put more effort in understanding the discussion and conclusion of the article if I need the value of the constant that the paper is calculating for me. Here I can scrutinize the author's method and critique their accuracy in my future paper. However, if I'm trying to find a new method or procedure, I'm going to look specifically at the method section, as I said before. And if the paper is a methods paper in particular, or like a paper that the focus of the paper is how to measure this new thing or compound in an accurate and precise way using this new technique in the lab, then I'm going to even read the supporting information along with the methods section if there's more information in the supporting information section of the article. Usually these lab articles come with supporting info that couldn't fit in the word count of the article, but it goes with the article to support the main points that the scientists or author are trying to explain to us. So use highlight and notes to aid your understanding. Dr. Edwards says, always, always, always mark up your reading. This is a critical aspect of our active reading strategy. We do this so that we have a basis to get the gist of the main points of the paper when it's time to write our critiques or findings in a specific argument for our manuscript that we're working on. It also saves time for later by actively highlighting and making notes on our journal articles so that writing becomes faster in the future and you become a more informed writer and you're not having to go back to specific articles to read the sections where you found that information that was most relevant to your project that you're doing. Extra piece of advice: use a citation manager. Use a citation manager. There's so many citation managers for you to pick from Mendeley, Zotero, EndNote, which is like the most popular one, particularly for older researchers, bookends and CiteYouLike, etc. My personal favorite is Mendeley, as you can highlight and create notes on the article in Mendeley, and it's pretty user-friendly. That's what I use actually. Citation managers make writing easier and helps to organize your large volumes of literary data that you need when you're writing your research papers. However, you must always, 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 always double check that your citations are accurate. Inaccurate citations fail to give authors full credit because we're in a digital world and we rely on statistics to identify scientists and their research output. And if your citation is incorrect, in the digital world, it won't record that you're citing this scientist, and it goes against the scientists because their research, it's not picking up that you found their research helpful. So it's important to accurately cite your article.
Newsflash!
Scientists are recognized by prestige and contribution, not necessarily through monetary means. So not having an accurate citation is very bad. Accuracy is key. Always recognize scientists accurately. Boom. Know the authors and the organization of the author that you are reading. Dr. Edwards states knowing the author and his or her organization also helps us understand the intellectual context.
That's it.
Lastly, rehearse and use multiple modes. After you have read your journal article, quiz yourself on its contents. Argue with the author. Dr. Edwards states that you should imagine how you would defend the author's position in your own writing. You can do this by presenting your findings in multiple modes, such as journal clubs with your lab mates, or sending journal summaries to your advisor as an addition to your scientific reports that you discuss with your PI. Just practice speaking about the data from that article so it tests your understanding of the field. This is something I need to do more often. So yeah, practice what you preach. I hope you've learned a lot from this abridged version of Professor Edwards' guide on how to read a book. Know that it takes practice, but you are better off with an organizational principle, which I hope I have exposed you to based on Professor Paul Edwards' work. Thank you for watching this episode. Please like and subscribe and click the notification button, and I'll see you next week. Thank you for watching this episode. Bye!